Hey everybody, welcome to Ask Glenn Anything, the live Q&A with Glenn Ambrose. That's Glenn. I'm Ben. Good to see you guys. If you have questions today, please type them in to the comments. And if you don't want to do that, you can always send an email to glenn@glennambrose.com and we will pull it off from there. Glenn, how are you today, my friend?
Wicked good, man.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And please leave comments about the opening video because that was stellar. Nicely done, Ben.
Oh, Gina's watching. Hey,
Gina's
Gina.
here. Hi, Gina.
Finally get to see you live. Very nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
From Canada.
Yes. And if you guys want, you can check out Gina's show, Living Simply, live every Monday at 6 o'clock. Sorry, I forgot what time it was. 6 o'clock Eastern time, because obviously people watch and listen to these all over the world, which is very, very, very cool. So, speaking of all over the world, Glenn, our first question today comes from Turkey.
Istanbul.
So, yeah. Thanks, Glenn. Can you please share your wisdom with us, if you haven't done so already, on what the heck self is, or indeed if there is such a thing? How can a person hear their thoughts? Who/what is speaking and who is hearing? I'm a bit confused on that. I am also an Eckhart Tolle fan who read his book, The Power of Now, in which he states that a person is not liberated, but you're liberated from the personality. What do we get if we are liberated from the person/personality? I would be most grateful if you could shed some light on this issue.
Well, if you are liberated, you get a brand new car.
Very nice.
Let's see. No, so I wanted to go back to the beginning. So it's like, how can a person hear their thoughts? Who or what is speaking and who is hearing? So there's two of us. So the incessant chatter that's always going on, when you look at a lamp and you go, "Ooh, I like that lamp. That's a nice lamp. Oh, I think I have a lamp like that." That's all just running in the background all the time. So that is our ego or our mind-made self. Or sometimes people even say it's just the mind itself with regurgitated thoughts from the past. So that is one. But there is also another part of us that knows we're having those thoughts. The one that is listening, the one that's hearing these thoughts, the one that's conscious that these thoughts are even being said. Because like if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, doesn't make a sound, it's that old question. So it's like, I mean, if there was a voice that was in your head and it was talking, but there was no consciousness, there was no awareness to hear that, then we wouldn't even know that it was talking. So there's a voice that's talking, and then there's a consciousness that's aware that it's talking. So that's what he means by the two of us. The consciousness, the awareness is our true self. That's what we actually are. That's the truth of what we are. And, because that's what we are. We are awareness. We are consciousness. We are energy. And then there's the mind-made self that's incessantly talking. And that's the problem is that we're out of control. So I guess this leads into the liberation aspect of it. That voice is not supposed to be just constantly talking. And we're also not supposed to think it's us. Like, we're not supposed to completely, the problem is we've completely disconnected from the fact that we are the aspect of ourselves that's listening. We are the consciousness. We are the awareness. We don't even recognize that anymore. We just recognize when we hear a thought, we think that it's us and it's our thought, and we should probably listen to it because it was ours, and it's not. It's just this thing that doesn't have true intelligence. It just spits out thoughts. It's so like one way I like to look at the ego is it's like a warning detector. It's constantly looking out for danger. That's its main job, is to protect us. So it's usually looking for stuff that it doesn't like, because that stuff that might cause danger. Oh, watch out for that. Oh, you got to be careful. Don't make sure you do that, because that might happen. And all that stuff is constantly going through our heads. And as soon as a thought comes in, we go, oh yeah, I better be careful of that. And it's like, no, not necessarily. The thing that just kicked that thought out is not really a thinking part of you. It's just a warning system. So it says, hey, you should be careful of that. That doesn't actually mean you should be careful of that. That means that your awareness is getting a little tip that there might be some danger over there. And the way it phrases it is, be careful of that. So we're supposed to know that we're consciousness and go, what? My warning system went off. It said there might be danger. Is there danger? Yes. Okay, I should protect myself. No, there isn't. Okay, I can dismiss it. We're supposed to be the consciousness. We have intelligence. We're supposed to be making the determinations. So the aspect of liberating ourselves is no longer identifying ourselves with this incessant stream of thoughts and that unconscious part of us, no longer liberating ourselves from thinking that's who we are. And what we get when we liberate ourselves is peace, because that thing never shuts up. It's literally like walking around with like some annoying friend just chirping in your ear all the time, like forever or like decades. Hey, what about this? Hey, what? Hey, did you look over here? Hey. Like, oh my God, shut up. It never shuts up. So if we can stop identifying with it, thinking that it's us, now all of a sudden we can be in control of it. It's supposed to be a tool. There's nothing wrong with it technically. We're supposed to be able to use it as a tool. There's a reason we have it. It's just the problem is that we stopped using it as a tool, and now it uses us as a sounding board. So, if we liberate ourselves from it, then it can go, hey, watch out for that danger. We go, oh, what? No, it's fine. Go be quiet again now. And then we can be like, oh, hey, what's 2 times 2? Oh, I know that one. That's 4. Thank you. Be quiet now. And then, so we use it as a tool. And like Tolle says, one of his biggest, or probably his biggest asset, is that he doesn't think. He cannot think. So he can just sit there in peace, because that's what's happening when you don't have that incessant chatter. You land in peace. So he can sit in peace, and then if he needs to use his mind for something, he'll just kick it in and use it, and then it goes back to sleep again. So so he walks through life extremely peacefully. And if you compare it to everybody else, extremely peacefully. So there, I hope that helps.
Yeah, we hope that helps. And if you guys have any questions you want to ask, please type them into the comments. Or if you're listening to this after, or on Insight Timer or something, send Glenn at Glenn Ambrose an email, and that's the best way to get your question answered next week. So how do you deal with disappointment? That is a theme that has been coming up for several people that I've talked to over the week. How do you deal with disappointment? Like when you're expecting, and like This is how most of these situations have come up with me. You're expecting one thing, and then you get radically different, and that I've seen how much disappointment that leads to recently in several different situations. So that is my question. What is the best way to help these people and ourselves to deal with things when they get disappointing, and just in general when we feel disappointed about things not meeting our expectations?
Well, that's it. The system's broke, Like, I mean, if you if you walk around having expectations, you're going to get disappointed. So don't have expectations. That's the quick one. Like, we have to understand, like, what, our expectations are kind of silly. I mean, if you think about it, like, I mean, all the possibility, all the things that have happened in this world, that just the things that we're aware of, hurricanes and earthquakes and, all kinds of natural disasters, as well as people doing things like changing their mind, or maybe changing the radio station on the car stereo while they're driving. Like,
That's terrible. Who would do that?
All the things that could go wrong and like veer off what we expect to happen. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous when we think we know how the world is going to unfold. I mean, like, what do we have, one of those magic 8 balls? Like, all of a sudden we know we can tell the future, and then when it doesn't happen, we have the audacity to be like, this is ridiculous. Like,
Right.
We actually feel disappointed. We get upset because we didn't forecast the future correctly, which we're literally incapable of doing anyway. So this is what I mean by the system is broken. It's like, I mean, yeah, we're going to get disappointed here and there. I mean, it happens, and I can touch on that. But I mean, for the most part, most of what we're doing is living silly. We're and I say this often. This is what I love about spirituality. It takes 60 seconds to break down a thought form, literally a way that most people live in society and consider completely normal, justified, acceptable, and a functional way of living. Most people have expectations. Most people deal with disappointment. Most people walk through their whole lives like that. And if you ever walk to somebody and you say, hey, have you ever felt disappointed? They're like, oh my God, yes, absolutely. Don't you hate it when that happens? Uh-huh. And like, nobody stops and hits the brakes and goes like, oh, let me look into this for a moment. I was literally trying to tell the future, and I'm incapable of that. Maybe I shouldn't attempt to tell the future, and then maybe I'd be disappointed less. It just doesn't hold any water. The way we walk through life is just ridiculous and silly, so we have to start looking at this type of thing. When we feel disappointment, what we're used to looking at is the symptom. So disappointment is a symptom of a misguided way of life. But we want to deal with the disappointment so we don't feel so bad. But to do that, you have to change the misguided way of life. So you don't get the symptom, So, that's the bigger part. I mean, dealing with disappointment, of course, we're going to have, I still get disappointed a little bit here and there, but you just have to take a step back and understand that, like, for me, like, when I first woke up, I found I had a 2-week window. I think we judge things too quickly, and that's one of the reasons why we experience disappointment where we shouldn't, because we have such short-term memory, and we just try to draw lines from like event and result, because we're trying to control things. So if we can do that, it makes us feel better. But that's not usually how life unfolds. There's something way smarter than us making things go on. So, like, what happens, my window was 2 weeks. And I found that if I gave whatever was happening in my life 2 weeks, if it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, if I just paused for 2 weeks, continued to live my life, and kept that in my peripheral, within 2 weeks, that situation that I was upset that didn't turn out the way I wanted it to came back, and something better came from it that I could never have expected, you know? So this is the whole, thank God for unanswered prayers. We don't, not only can we not see the future, but we have no idea what's best for us. Zero.
True.
So
True.
So when things don't happen the way we want them to, we really need to slow down and go, well, wait a minute here. Like, this isn't, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe there's something happening from a larger perspective that this might turn out in my favor. And most people, if they use their hindsight and look back on things, it's like, whatever didn't work out turned out to be our biggest lessons. So I think it's understanding that life is happening for us, not to us, even when it doesn't look like it or feel like it. When we keep that in mind, all of a sudden things start working out.
Gina has a comment. What helps me is to remind myself that rejection is protection, i.e., if things don't turn out the way I want them to, it just means that something better or different is meant for me, and acceptance of what is rather than being attached to the certain outcome. Totally agree. There's something bigger out there in charge. Yeah. So, you've always said suffering is resistance to what is.
Right.
So when you're disappointed, that's a form of suffering. You're resisting. That totally makes sense.
Right.
My question though now would be about her, rather than being attached to a certain outcome. Mm-hmm. And that is something that I have been trying to work on this year personally, to not be attached to the outcome of situations. And there are days where that is an easy thing to do, and then it can even be the same situation, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like the same situation, you can be like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I don't care about the end result of these things. And then it's like 24 hours later, I'm like, who am I kidding? Of course I care about the end result. That's the only thing I care about right now, and then you have to like bring yourself back in check. So how do you do that? Like, how do you really disengage from being attached to the outcome of a situation, especially when you really want a certain outcome?
Well, it sounds, from what you described, it sounds like you're human. So that's good.
I don't like that answer. I don't want to be. I don't want to be.
That's what, welcome to life. That's what happens. We when we're in good space, we do better than when we're in bad space. And sometimes we do better at things and sometimes we don't. Wow.
Change the camera angle.
So, so sometimes we do better at things and sometimes we don't. And we have to, like you kind of answered it. You have to slow down and bring yourself back. And it's I think using hindsight too, and it can be helpful to put things into perspective, because when we get pulled into that and we're way in and we're like, oh, I want this particular result. Yeah, that's better. So you want that particular result, like, it's, you're sucked into the drama of the situation. You're leaning into it. So to lean away from it and put a little space and just bring yourself back and disconnect and be like, okay, wait a minute. So if we have something that we can use as a tool to bring ourselves back to reality, that's helpful in that process. So me, it's, it's easy. I just take the biggest thing that I've ever done where I didn't have an attachment to an outcome, and I use that as my tool, which for me, it was going to court to get custody of Mateo, so like before we went in, I was like, if I go in there with expectations, planning on a specific outcome, I'm going to be motivated by fear because I'm going to try to manipulate it and try to make it happen. And I already have a ton of fear because of past family court experiences. I got to shift my energy around this. So once I was able to, I do some work on it and shift it and go, okay, I'm taking the power away from the Rhode Island court system, away from my ex, and giving it to my higher power where it belongs. That's like step one. But then it's like, well, you have to be not attached to the outcome though, because it doesn't work if you're not. If you're like, oh, I'm going to give the power and control of my life over to my higher power, as long as it works out the way I want it to, that's not handing it over.
Right. Yeah.
So when you hand it, so I had to get to this. I'm like, oh no, I have to make peace with both outcomes. If he comes to live with me, of course I'm going to be happy. That's what I want. And it's very important and it's very emotional. But I also have to be okay if it doesn't go that way. Otherwise, I'm not actually handing it over. So for me, once I was able to get to that space to go, if for some reason he doesn't come live with me, it's because it's got to, since I'm handing the power over to my higher power, it's got to be in our highest good. There's got to be, maybe he needs to go through some more lessons where he is that he hasn't gone through yet. And maybe I have stuff to learn too. And I have to be okay with that. Now, would I have been disappointed? But I would have had to, then I bring in acceptance. But that's what I was able to get to that space. So that's what I use. So if I'm in a situation where my brain is going, yeah, but I really want this to happen. It's like, wait a minute, Glenn, how does the dynamics of this work? And then I go back to that and I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Even in an extreme situation, you really have to understand that there's something more intelligent than you making things happen, hand it over and have trust in it. Even if it doesn't go your way, in the long term, everything's going to go your way because life is happening for you, not to you.
And how important is it to prime yourself for that so that you're like establishing that mindset beforehand instead of trying to do it in the it's
on the fly?
Yeah, it's easier to, I feel like it's easier to try to prevent those feelings than it is to try to fix it afterwards.
Yeah, it's totally easier. It's easier to prevent a fire than it is to put one out after it started. So it's like, yeah, it's about living consciously. And most of this, everything that we talk about is about living consciously. So yeah, if you're going into a situation, take a moment and center yourself. And then even if you don't know you're going into a situation, take a moment and center yourself. Like always, take a moment and center yourself. And then after that, take a moment and center yourself. Like we have to constantly do that because there is such a pull to a dysfunctional way of living that doesn't make any sense. We can lean into it so easily. It's so habitual, So yeah, it's just constantly slowing down. And if you're going into a big situation, absolutely, like prepare yourself. This is the way I'm going to look at this. This is the way I'm coming at it. This is the way I'm going to think about it. This is why I'm thinking about it that way. And I'm going to do my best to stay in that energy. And then if you get pulled off track, you've got all that set already. That you agreed to be like that. So if you get pulled off and you recognize that you're pulled off, it's like, oh, good, I recognized it. Instead of, oh, crap, I'm an idiot, I got pulled off. We all get pulled off. Don't worry about it. So, but once you get pulled off, you go, oh, how am I supposed to be looking at this? And you already have a pre-recorded thing sitting right there that you made, So you're like, oh, yeah, yeah, I got it. Okay, cool. And then you can move forward with it.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. I think that's going to help. I think that's advice that it's going to help me personally. So I appreciate it. Because I think that going into, in any aspect, like in so many different aspects, if you're not attached to the outcome of a situation, like if you're not like desperate for a job in an interview, or like, you know what I mean? Like you're going to perform better. You're going to be at ease.
Oh
You're going to
yeah.
be, like when I'm, well, like, yeah, my entire life, if I'm too attached to the outcome of the situation, then I get in my head and I act stupid, honestly.
Well,
Like,
we all do, and
you
we
know,
try to manipulate, and then like if we're sucked in, we don't even realize we're trying to manipulate the
yep,
situation
yep.
or somebody else to get what we want. We don't even realize we're doing it because we're so attached to the outcome. And it's, like the the beauty of it is that a plane?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, I heard sound in the background. Yes, it's a plane. Just admit it. It's okay.
Yeah, it's a plane. I'm outside, and
Okay, thank you.
there are crows that are coming to get me,
Uh,
as always, in my backyard.
yeah. So I mean, the thing about not being attached to the outcome is it kind of seems hard in like close up life situations. But if you lean back and you get like if you get a better perspective on stuff and understand things a little bit better, it's really beautiful. It's just like all of spirituality. It's beautiful. It's like the Bill Russell talked about it in his book, and he, the center for the Boston Celtics, and he's talking about how like there was times when he stepped on the court, he could feel that something special was going to happen, and people in sports and entertainment and in a lot of other areas of life call it the zone. You drop into the zone, that's spiritual practice. And like it usually happens when you have some level of master at it, like, I mean, I've experienced it, and I certainly was no master at sports, but I did play them over and over and over to where I could stop thinking about what I was doing and fall into the zone. And that's usually when it happens. So like when somebody falls into the zone, as Bill Russell explained, it's an exchange of energy. And then sometimes he could recognize the other person being in the zone too, and his opponent. And winning and losing didn't matter to either of them. It wasn't about winning or losing. It wasn't about an outcome. It was an expression of potential energy coming through them. And that was when their best came out. Their best, like that is when you're at the peak, when you are just expressing and doing what you're supposed to be doing and in alignment with it and feeling the joy of it. And it's like, that's its reward in itself. I touched on this in that podcast about fulfillment. We think we're supposed to do something and then we'll feel fulfilled. No, we feel the fulfillment in the process of doing it. That I feel that when I life coach. I feel that now when I'm talking about this stuff. It's the joy is coming through as you're doing it, and that's its own reward. We do it for that. We don't do it for a specific outcome. And when we get into the habit of doing it like that, the outcomes are way better than we could ever expect.
This is a beautiful episode. I liked it a lot. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you liked it, Ben.
Thanks so much to Gina for her insight and
Yes.
our question all the way from Istanbul, Turkey today. Love it. I love having an international show and audience for this and for the podcast. Check that out, Life Lessons and Laughter. 4 years, 200 episodes. You can find out all of that stuff. And if you want to book a session with Glenn, glennambrose.com is where you
be there or be square.
Stuff. Yeah, be there or be square. Glenn, is there anything else you want to say before we sign off for the night?
I like the little crab in the video at the beginning.
Yeah. All of that stuff filmed by Glenn, I believe.
It was filmed. Wow. Yeah.
Except for the last one where you're floating.
Yeah, where I'm floating in front of the waterfall. Yeah, that wasn't filmed by me.
Yeah, jerk. You're never coming home. You're never coming home.
That was so awesome.
You're never coming home. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks, Ben. See you guys later.